These are photographs from my first trip to Holland and my first trip to Amsterdam in the summer of 2019. I'm an American woman, age 64, and I've always been interested in going to Holland and Amsterdam, especially to see the architecture. And I'm delighted that I finally got to go. And these are just some photographs I hope you'll like. When I was growing up, I really enjoyed reading Hans Brinker. I had no idea that it was written by an American woman, Mary Mapes Dodge, and that completely captured what I thought Holland was like, and probably most Americans would feel the same way. And as I finally have seen Holland and the Dutch people, it actually kind of all merges together, and I find that they kind of fit my vision of what Dutch people will like. I happen to agree that it's refreshing to not have to wear a bike helmet, and I think it's one reason why bike riding is so common in Dutch cities. Stuart and I visited Amsterdam in the summer, but I would love to come back when they really were ice skating. My favorite parts of Hans Brinker were the speed skating race, and I think it's wonderful. I think their whole way of life in Amsterdam and Holland is a very good one, and they're so physically fit. The bike riding and just watching them on the streets made me realize they have a very good way of life, and certainly in the winter when they're skating fits into that vision I have. The book I read before I went to Holland that I loved was not Hans Brinker again, but The Miniaturists by an English author. But I think she and the TV series that was made of it really captured when I actually saw Amsterdam. I think it was a really well-made production, and I think I'm reading the book right now. I think the book is also a great book. My friends, the Mancheses, and their son Eddie, told me about the Hotel Amrath, and this is where we stayed and the first place we went to when we got off the central train station from the airport. And as you can see, it's not your typical hotel, and it really is a beautiful building, and I would recommend it highly to anyone visiting Amsterdam. This is a close-up of the way you enter the hotel, and it was designed as one of the first Art Deco in the Holland style Art Deco period buildings at the turn of the century. It's very convenient. It's near the old harbor and the Central Railroad and near a lot of the main tourist areas, and very nice staff and rooms. This is the lobby, kind of looking up from above on one of the first or second floors. It's a very condensed space, but you can see the Art Deco design here. The building originally was the headquarters of one of the shipping companies in Amsterdam, and this is, I think, the kind of pièce de résistance of the design was this beautiful skylight over the main lobby space. This is a close-up of the top of the atrium and the stained glass window, and it's showing the world and the shipping companies, different places where they would do business all throughout the world, which I think is a very Dutch thing to do historically. This is the St. Nicholas Church, which is very close to the hotel where we stayed and also at the old harbor right opposite the central train station. It was built in the late 1800s, so it is not an old church. It is the new St. Nicholas Church, but I think it is a beautiful interior, and wanted to try to show the color scheme. Most Dutch churches are not this colorful, and I really liked the ornamentation inside. Stuart and I were completely newbie tourists to Holland. We knew no Dutch, which we knew would probably not be a huge problem. The first thing we noticed was how good the coffee was there. And our favorite place in the old city turned out to be Omeleg, which was a breakfast place serving mostly eggs 24 hours a day. And it was a huge draw. I'd say half Dutch, half tourists. We had to wait outside most of the time during the busy hours, but it was worth it. And they had beautiful omelets and beautiful coffee. And we just could not get enough of the way the Dutch prepared good coffee. These next slides are just going to show you photographs I took as we were walking and sightseeing around Amsterdam. Beautiful architecture of all time periods. I really liked this one. The oldest building in Amsterdam is said to be the Old Church. I'm not sure how you say this in Dutch, Oude Kerk. It was started to be built in the 1200s and is a place where Rembrandt, I think it's the only building that is the same since Rembrandt's time. And it was a remarkable building. I think everyone who visits Amsterdam should try to see it. There have been many famous paintings of the old church in Dutch art. This is one of them, and it, I think, captures some of the quality that you feel when you're in the space. It's a very unusual and idiosyncratic church interior. This is another painting of the interior of the old church, and as you can see, they are digging in the painting. They are digging a grave, and it turns out that the church was built over a cemetery, and throughout the history of the church, the floor is gravestones, and it took me a while to catch on when I was walking around, and I thought, gosh, these floors are uneven and different, and finally it dawned on me that I was walking on people's graves. In this photograph you can see the floor and the little places on the graves where they can lift up the stone slabs. People are still being buried there today. We did not get to hear the organ, but you can tell it's a beautiful organ, and I know has been an important part of the life of the church, and there have been famous organists who have been in residence there. So it would certainly be a treat to hear an organ concert there. This is one of the larger windows in the church, and you can tell it's sort of a hodgepodge of stained glass and clear glass, and that's from the history of the Reformation in Holland in, I believe, the 1530s. I may be off by a decade or two. But it was a very violent time, and the interior of this church and many others were looted, and the stained glass was destroyed. Some of it was replaced, as you can tell, so it's sort of an interesting marker of the religious history of the country. These last set of slides are the neighborhood right behind the hotel. One really nice thing about Amsterdam is you can be on very busy touristy streets, but if you just go back, go behind, you'll find neighborhoods that are very quiet and the real life of the people who live here. This photograph is from our hotel window, and it is just a street where people lived, and most of the time people were out on the steps of their apartments playing with their dogs and children and each other, and it was a very nice part of being a tourist in a hotel to look out and see all this. The Dutch really take bike riding very seriously, and you do not get in their way or you will get crushed. And we were always trying to look out for where was the bike path. And there were people riding bikes of all ages at all times of the day. And like other people have described, there are bikes everywhere and people ride them everywhere. People also live on the houseboats that are parked, yeah, I guess parked is a good word, along the canals. And this is an example of some of the canals right by on the other side of the hotel where people live. There were many moments as I was looking at scenes like this where it really invoked the Dutch painting tradition of the landscapes with the flat horizons and the big clouds. And it was wonderful to see paintings come to life. I think this is my favorite photograph I took that really shows the landscape and the cloudscape and the water of Holland.